Therefore, you need not grieve for any creature. Text 31. Swadharma mapicha nam vikam viduarasi dharma hihuja treyo nyaya chatriyasya na vidyate. Translation: considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles, and so there is no need for hesitation. Next text, 33, sorry. Ata chetvam imam dharmyam sangramam na karishyasi tata sardharmam kitim cha itva papam avakyasi. Translation: if, however, you do not fight this religious war, then you will certainly incur sins for neglecting your duties, and thus you lose your reputation as a fighter. And is there one more? Oh, I see. Okay. 32. Yadrichaya chopananam sarva
dharma pavritam sukhina kshatriya partha labante yudamidrisham.
O Partha, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors of heavenly planets. Is that all of them this evening? That's all of them? Okay. Okay, back to text 23. The soul can never be cut into pieces by any weapon, nor can he be burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. All kinds of weapons, swords, flames, rains, tornadoes, etc. are unable to kill the spirit soul. It appears that there were many kinds of weapons made of earth, water, air, ether, etc., in addition to the modern weapons of fire. Even the nuclear weapons of the modern age are classified as fire weapons. But formerly, there were other weapons made of all different types of material elements. Firearms were counteracted by water weapons, which are now unknown to the modern science. Nor do modern scientists have knowledge of tornado weapons. Nonetheless, the soul can never be cut into pieces, nor annihilated by any number of weapons, regardless of scientific devices. Nor was it ever possible to cut the individual souls from the original soul. The Mayavadi, however, cannot describe how the individual soul evolved from ignorance and consequently became covered by illusory energy, because they are atomic individual souls, sanatana. Eternally, they are prone to be covered by the illusory energy, and thus they become separated by the association of the Supreme Lord, just as the sparks of the fire, although one in quality with the fire, are prone to be extinguished when out of the fire. In the Vraha Purana, the living entities are described as separated parts and parcels of the Supreme. They are eternally so, according to the Bhagavad Gita. So, even after being liberated from illusion, the living entity remains a separate identity, as is evident from the teachings of the Lord to Arjuna. Arjuna became liberated by the knowledge received from Krishna, but he will never became one with Krishna. Maharaj, would you like to speak anything on these verses?
These weapons that were launched, such as a water weapon and mountain weapons, tornado weapons. Certainly the Lord uses these weapons, and the demigods are his agents to use them also. It's like we have tornadoes. There are certainly weapons in the hand of someone who knows how to control them. And they do annihilate the area they're sent to annihilate. Hurricane, well, all these types of air and fire and earth weapons. So it's not difficult to accept this, that there are persons who have the power to launch these weapons. They may do it by mantra, or they may have some other means, but generally they do by mantra. So it's a subtle science, and but it's true that today scientists are trying to investigate the hurricane to see what, or say the tornado, to find out what makes it, how does it work? And it's difficult to find out how it works because these things, although they're subtle matter, subtle material knowledge, subtle material energy, is still higher than our abilities to use these things. So instead of saying that it's inexplicable and nobody can understand it, it would be better to say these things are beyond our capacity to understand at this point. That would be a humble position, and from that position then it would be easy to actually be able to understand. We see that a devotee, even a simple devotee, he can understand how the soul, although Ascharyavat means a verse tonight we read, some look on the soul as amazing, some hear of him as amazing, some describe him as amazing, some even after hearing about him cannot understand at all. So a person who's on the gross material platform in the mode of ignorance and passion, he doesn't get it. He can't understand it, even though it's not difficult. Because when one accepts the procedure, then the one with superior knowledge can actually bestow that knowledge upon a lesser person. Just like if you want to know combination to an important safe, so you can hit it, you can bang it, you can try to blow it up with dynamite, and it's very difficult. Or you can find the person who is the owner and who knows it, and then if he's pleased with you, if you tell him why you want to open the safe, if it's a good reason, he'll give you the combination, and you can open it very easily. So that's the way it is with things beyond our capacity to understand. By our own forced weapons or our own intelligence, we can't understand these things. We can't find out. It's like going to other planets. We're trying to go by our own strength, by fuel and rocketry and rocket science. We're trying to go and barge in to these other planets. But we're not fit to stay there. And so we don't generally try to go to the sun planet because we know it's very hot. But there are those who have fiery bodies, primarily. They can live there without any difficulty. So these things they're not accepted by so-called learned persons because they don't have any faith in the scriptures. So they can't can't understand. But the process of descending knowledge, learning from those who know, is much easier than trying the ascending process to figure it out backwards. It's like, wouldn't it be easier if someone, let's say you want to know what happened at a certain place at a certain time in the past, you can try to get hints from relics that are around, and you can dig in the ground. But if there was someone there and he wrote down a whole explanation of what happened, that would be a better way of receiving knowledge. So we prefer, the Vaishnavas prefer a descending process, and Krishna knows everything. So it's a perfect system. If you have someone who is giving the knowledge and he's deficient, then naturally the process will be flawed. But in this case, the original person is full of all knowledge, knows everything. Therefore, there's nothing that he cannot speak on, nothing that he cannot reveal. So the pure devotee can receive all kinds of knowledge that is unimaginable. It's like a father, big father, he has so much wealth and so much power. He doesn't necessarily reveal it to all of his offspring, but those who are very qualified and submissive and humble, intelligent, then he gives them the knowledge to run the whole operation. So this is the system. And these verses give us a hint how to understand. Even the yoga process is still depending on, the living entity is depending on his own strength, his own power. He wants to force nature or whatever to give him the powers that he believes he has. He wants supernatural powers. Like Hiranyakashipu, he wanted to force Brahma, and he did. He was so determined and so powerful that he practically forced Brahma to come there and satisfy his desires. All the other demigods were unable to even approach him. They had to just be his servants. But he and Shiva were the only ones and Vishnu, who didn't have to surrender to it. But if one just humbly approaches Krishna, or through his representative, through his procedure, then this knowledge can be revealed. Tesham satatayuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dami buddhi yogam tam yena mamopyantate. Krishna says, those who are constantly devoted and worship me, love I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Not forced. He's happy to do that. And similarly, the devotees don't demand to know something. They say, if I need to know, if you want me to know, if I may know, very humble in their approach. They don't even demand that they have knowledge. But naturally, Krishna gives that.
Hi, thank you, Guru Maharaj. Yes, so Arjuna, he's completely perplexed at the end of the first chapter, going into the second chapter, and he's confused. And what is the position of somebody who is confused? They're then ready to accept some guidance because they know that I don't know and I need some help from somebody else to get me out of this perplexity. So this is a qualification of somebody who is ready to inquire about the absolute truth and approach a spiritual master. Just like Maharaj was saying, the spiritual master, he is in full knowledge because Krishna, the Supreme Person, he is full of the six opulences, Bhagavan. So he is somebody who possesses all six of these opulences is known as Bhagavan, and we know this person is God. Because some people can have some wealth, some people can have some fame, some people can have some beauty, some people can have some knowledge, some people can have some renunciation, but nobody has all of these qualities in full like Krishna does. So somebody who possesses this, he is full in all qualities. And he has all the knowledge to impart on to the surrendered soul. And Arjuna in this Bhagavad Gita, he was a perfect disciple. He was confused about his duty in the beginning, as we're seeing, and he accepts Krishna as a spiritual master. They had some familial relationship, Krishna and Arjuna, and they were also very, very friendly with each other. But at this part in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna says, this friendly relationship, it only can go so far, basically. It's about time you instruct me. Let me be a soul surrendered unto you, and you can impart this knowledge. So he's in a very nice position. So one might ask, how does somebody find a proper spiritual master? Or, there's so many people that have some knowledge, how do we know we're choosing the correct spiritual master? Because to choose a spiritual master, you're imparting you're trusting him with your life. Because if he instructs you wrongly, your life is wasted completely, So you have to trust that this person knows 100% the absolute truth. And if somebody's not qualified yet to distinguish, to find somebody who actually knows, then they're not qualified for a spiritual master. Just like if somebody is trying to get an education in school, they're looking at colleges, right? Or they think, I'm going to get an education. And instead of looking at different colleges around the country, they go to the nearest pizza parlor and ask them to please educate me. I need some education. We know that this person, he's not ready to actually receive real education because he doesn't know how to distinguish somebody who can actually educate versus somebody who can just teach him how to make pizza and do some nonsense. So this is a qualification to actually, meet a spiritual master and find a spiritual master. And sincerity is the biggest qualification because Krishna is he is situated in the heart of all living entities, and he is directing the wanderings of all living entities. So he sees that the jiva soul is very sincere, wanting to inquire about the absolute truth, wanting to know about God. So he arranges that he puts that devotee in the circumstance where he can make the most advancement. So Arjuna accepting Krishna here as a spiritual master is totally essential, as it is for anybody who is serious about spiritual life. And just as the parents in India traditionally, they would get married very young. The children, they would have the children married at 10 or 12 years old. And the parents, they would be very selective about who they allow the son or the daughter to marry. Because this is a very important factor, And in this way, the children, they would get married at a very early age. And the parents, early on, the children have no love for that spouse that the parent sets them up with. So early on, the parents, they simply instruct the daughter, okay, this is how you cook. You cook nicely for your husband like this. Offer it to Krishna, and you can, satisfy your husband in this way. Or they instruct the husband, okay, offer some flour to Krishna and then present it to your wife. You can make advancement in this way. That way, they're being instructed by somebody who actually knows what, love is, or I guess in the material sense, sentiment is, So they get instructed in this way to properly express affection for one another. Similarly, we have no love for God when we come to this movement. So the spiritual master, in the beginning, the process called sadhana bhakti, he instructs us simply, okay, you offer a flower to Krishna, and in this way you make advancement. I see that you're inclined to do some painting. You're a nice artist, therefore paint a picture of Krishna. In this way, the spiritual master, he can see what you're inclined to do, and he can instruct accordingly so you can make the most advancement. And in this way, in the beginning, it may be very difficult. We may not want to get up early. We may not want to paint that picture for Krishna. Our hands may hurt, or we may be extremely tired, painting around the clock like the devotees did in the early days. They were falling asleep while they were painting. But they held true to their spiritual master's instruction, and pretty soon they started developing some actual love. And then they started doing things on a spontaneous platform, not just because they were being told to do it. And this is where real love comes from. This is a symptom of getting some real love. So doing our duty out of love rather than, just being told, it's a sign that we're making some advancement in this way. So these verses, they're speaking about the soul, and it's mentioned that, the soul, it's been around since time immemorial. And just because this body perishes and it decays and grows old, the soul does not, right? And it's eternal, and it forever will be. It can be stuck here trying to enjoy material energy and, being away from Krishna, or it can be, together with Krishna, trying to serve him in the material world. And in that way, hopefully we can perfect on a soul level and go back home, back to Godhead. So Krishna goes over all the things. The soul, it can't be harmed in any way. So, for instance, we see the example of like the yogis in the Himalayas, right? They're usually meditating on the super soul, and they are able to withstand some excruciating conditions because they understand that they're not this body. They're maybe out in the mountains in nothing but, a small cloth just covering around their waist, and they're fine. It's snowing outside, and meanwhile they're fine. They're meditating on super soul within. They have some process that they're following to not be so affected by these things. They realize factually they are not their body. So similarly, we can see this. We go outside, we might go for a japa walk, or it's freezing cold and we're taking in the groceries, and we see if we're meditating on the Supreme Lord and we're absorbed in our service, we're maybe hearing instructions from spiritual master via lecture in the headphones, or chanting Hare Krishna with the devotees, have a little kirtan going while you're bringing in the groceries. You see that the mind, it's not so perplexed and it's not so concerned with the bodily discomforts. So this is also a sign of advancement or absorption in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada would say, like a nice gauge to see if you're making advancement is, you're requiring less maintenance, or you're spending less time on these maintenance things for the body. You're getting less disturbed. The body is uncomfortable in this certain time. Now, if we really look at it, this body, it's completely full of ignorance, and it's going to be uncomfortable in any situation that we're in, regardless, to some degree. So if we can just realize that, there's these three miseries that, we have to deal with, these three various types of sufferings that every living entity has to incur, and we know that this is part of the material world, and rather than focusing on these different miseries caused by the body or the mind, miseries caused by other living entities, and also miseries caused by things that we can't control, like weather patterns, or you name it. If it's freezing cold and snowing outside, we can't change that. There's nothing we can do. So better to just, not focus on it, not worry about it too much, because the soul is not affected by these things. However, the soul, it is affected by developing a real relationship with Krishna. If one can water this bhakti lata bij, this seed, this devotional creeper, then the soul can fructify, and the jiva soul can realize his constitutional position as a servant with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. And in this way, he can, follow the spiritual master's instructions and go back home, back to Godhead. hopefully our aim is to do that in one life. And Srila Prabhupada, often it's spoke that this is a very, some devotees speak like this is a very, very difficult thing to achieve, this going back home, back to Godhead in one life. But, Srila Prabhupada, he mentioned on various occasions that, if we follow these regulative principles that he told us to do, there's no meat eating, eggs, fish, there's no gambling, there's no intoxication, no illicit sex. And also we offer all of our foodstuffs to Krishna. We follow the nice program that he's provided for us. He basically mapped this out as a direct way back home, back to Godhead in this lifetime. So if we can follow these instructions, this is our austerity for this day and age. I was just speaking last night with a Prabhu, during the love feast, and this is what he was saying. He was saying, as a grihasta, this is how he views his austerity, his version of austerity. I mean, all of these things these requirements that, Srila Prabhupada gave us, these are immensely austere. He said it's so difficult not to just go out after working a full day of work and just pick something up on your way home. Eat out. He said it's so difficult not to, he said he has quite a sweet tooth, so he said it's so hard not to just stop at CVS and grab, a pint of ice cream on his way home. But he knows, this is not offerable to Krishna. I did not make this with love and devotion for Krishna, so I'm not going to do it. And in this way, this is austerity, and we make advancement. All these regulative principles and this process Prabhupada gave us, it's centered around remembering Krishna. So even if you give like a neophyte, first time coming to the temple, completely doesn't know anything about Krishna consciousness, if you give him one of the nice cookbooks we have, or Science of Self-Realization, where it explains to offer your food to Krishna, keep an altar at home, every time he's going to think of eating, eventually he's going to start to think of Krishna. He's going to develop some kind of taste for prasadam. He's going to come around, develop a higher taste. Most people, they're not going to be so inclined to understand the philosophy right away. But they will develop a higher taste if they take prasadam, if they chant the holy names congregationally, if they danced in ecstasy with the devotees. This is how the general mass of people are going to come to this movement. So this offering prasadam, it's extremely important, especially for somebody starting out. We can instruct them to do so, and we can see they'll make tremendous advancement very quickly. And the quality of the prasadam is very important, because it's actually said that the consciousness of the pujari and the consciousness of the cook are some of the two most important factors in a temple environment. Because, if you come from Mangala Arti and you see this pujari, he's kind of fumbling all around the place, he's not in the proper consciousness, it'll affect, the offerings to Krishna, it'll affect the environment. And same as the cook, if he's really struggling, if he's really in Maya or something, the food, it takes on that vibration, and everybody else takes on that vibration. So it's very important that we make offerings that are suitable and feasible for advancement in Krishna consciousness, and especially in like a brahmacharya ashram. And this is something else the Prabhu was mentioning last night. He was saying that this ashram, the prasadam is first class here. He was saying how this is the only brahmacharya ashram in the United States that is like very traditional, where the spiritual master is here. And he's saying it's tremendous. It's very different than any other mood. And he says this is why he comes back every Sunday, time after time for years, because he can see. He sees the devotees here. He sees Maharaj. His mood is infectious here. RBC is amazing. And there's utmost room for advancement here at Rupanuga Vedic College. There's so much room for so many services. Maharaj has so many plans. If we can just give it our all every day to serve the Lord to our topmost capacity and help each other do that and go back home to Godhead, You know, there's so much room for advancement and improvement here. It's unreal. And there's so many nice, bright-faced young devotees here. You know, it's ecstatic. So thank you all for, allowing me to be a part of this and, trying our hardest to serve Krishna together under the guidance of the spiritual master. This is what Arjuna was doing. Serving Krishna. He was doing his duty, He thought it was best just to, he had a very pious point of view, right? Okay, I see my family members, my teachers, my friends, why would I want to kill them? I would give, he even says, I would give not only would I give this kingdom, but if I had all the kingdoms in the entire universe, it still wouldn't be good enough to kill these people. He was fighting for this Bharatvarsh kingdom. Long ago, India, in fact, the whole world was called Bharatvarsh. And there was, just like Pakistan was separated from India, Bharatvarsh, India became just this little subcontinent, or a continent, where before all of the different continents were called Bharatvarsh. This was the earth. So this is the kingdom that he was going to win over. The entire earth. And he's saying, not only I would give up the entire earth to not kill my family, but all of the planetary systems in this whole universe, and it still wouldn't be good enough to want to kill my family. So this is pious. Usually if we're seeing two brothers fighting or something, and they're starting to get into it, heavily, we just say, forget this. Why fight each other? Why be violent towards each other? Why hurt each other? On a material platform, this is okay. But this is why one needs a spiritual master, because Arjuna, he was completely perplexed. And there's certain duties that a Kshatriya has to undergo. And Arjuna, he's from the Aryan race. He's a Kshatriya. His duty is to fight. There's certain things that a Kshatriya cannot deny. If somebody challenges a Kshatriya to a duel, to fight, he cannot just say, no, I don't want to hurt you. No, this isn't his duty. This isn't his dharma. His religious duty is to fight. Similarly, if he gets challenged to a dice game, right, he has to do it. Whereas, before, or we don't gamble, right? We don't gamble, but a Kshatriya, he's permitted to gamble because it's his duty to not back down to these instances, right? This is how Yudhishthira lost his entire kingdom. He was asked to a dice match and he lost everything. First he lost his kingdom, then he lost his wife, all of his horses, etc. He lost everything to this gambling activity because he was a Kshatriya. He didn't want to back down. So the point is that sometimes in the material world, there's so many things that everybody may be doing that seem okay. But from a dharmic point of view, from a dharmic perspective, from the view of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his instruction onto us, he may not agree with this. And we have to be ready to not just give in to the social norm and social custom just because everyone's doing it. I'm sure everyone here has heard the saying, somebody might pose, well, mom or dad, everyone's doing it, and then the parent says, if everyone's jumping off a bridge, are you going to do that too? Everyone's heard that. So we can't just give into the social norm or social custom just because it's become popular. This legalization of different forms of intoxication that's being prevalent in today's society, right? This marijuana, I'm seeing signs everywhere. Vote yes on this bill or something, and they're saying, yes, it's okay to do this. See, these other states are doing it. So it's okay. But no, this is not what Krishna recommends. So we have to stay true to what Krishna instructs us to do. We can't just give in to peer pressure or some social customs. So it's important to note that that is a theme going on in this end of first and second chapter. So does anyone have any questions or comments in regards to the verses we covered tonight? Jai Keshava Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thanks for your class, Prabhu. My question is related to something you just mentioned about how, you're not giving into peer pressure. Just like on a personal note, like some devotees, they might come here and they see like that Radha and I are, living at the temple, and they, sometimes suggest, maybe it might be time for you to get a job or something, or, move on. So it's, different devotees say different things, and I'm just a little confused by that, because one devotee might say one thing, another devotee might say another thing. And it's hard to understand the intent of what the devotee is saying and the wisdom they have to respect them. Do you have any thoughts on that? I was just curious.
Yeah, nice question, Prabhu. If everybody has a limited scope of view that they're able to see, everyone has different lives, they're at different levels of, advancement. They're in knowledge of different things. So to just like change your duty just because somebody suggests, like, say somebody says, Prabhu, like, it might be time to get a job, like move out, get a place. Don't you guys want to do that? You have to be able to take into consideration like where you're at and how that, you'll make the most advancement in the situation that Krishna has given you. And it's very imperative that you check with Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra in this matter. It is very rare, and we are very grateful and fortunate to have you both here, because it's extremely rare in the United States to have a Grihastha couple that does full-time service living in the temple, especially young and fired up like you guys. It's a real inspiration, so people may be seeing that, you can act as a guide to actually help the Grihasthas advance. You're here full-time and you guys are a Grihastha couple, It's like a role model situation as far as I see it. But the ashram is traditionally that does happen, where the Grihasthas, they get a household and they raise a family like that. But again, check with spiritual master. I don't want to give any advice or anything since I'm not qualified, but yeah, you're making advancement. You can see it. If you have any doubt that you're not making advancement, maybe it's time. You could pose that question. But if one is making proper advancement in the situation that they're in, and they're happy, and they're ecstatic to serve every day, then I would say there's no reason to change the situation at hand. So thanks for the question. I don't have a whole lot of insight on that. I haven't personally gone through it, so I can't speak from experience. But I hope that helped out a little bit. And if it's really a pressing thing and a pressing issue, spiritual master is always there for guidance. I mean, this is essential in all the decisions we make. Even the smallest decisions, we should have other sadhus, there to ask, is this okay? We see that Maharaj is a perfect example of this. He has so much knowledge, so much qualification, yet he's asking somebody completely unqualified, like myself, should we do like this? Should we do like that? But that's the Vedic culture. Because we can't trust these minds because they get us into a whole slew of problems. So if we trust, those around us, and we see that those around us are making proper advancement and that they're qualified to instruct us, and we value their opinion on the matters, that's a very favorable circumstance for advancement amongst the community. Because if there's a group of people and nobody feels like anyone's opinion matters, or that nobody's advanced enough to have like a say, this would be a very hard situation to go about this way of life, because we're constantly asking people, what do you think, Prabhu? Is this an okay thing to do in this situation? It shows that we value the opinion of those around us. Otherwise, we would just be acting on our own whimsical nature without checking with anyone. So we have to just always check with everything we do. Okay, does anyone else have any comments or questions? Yes, Mataji. I couldn't tell if you had a question or you were stretching, sorry.
Hare Krishna. I just had a couple comments, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just thinking about this point that you said about how performing austerities for Krishna, helps us to advance spiritually. I like the story you shared about your friend who, is a grihasta, and it's easy to think coming home late after work, I could just get a pint of ice cream, and but it's not off. It wasn't made by him or her, and wasn't offered with love, so it's not prasadam. And so performing those little or seemingly little austerities to some can really help someone advance. And just also, like you said, waking up early and going to Mangalarti, and even just falling asleep while doing your services, but really just trying our best to serve Krishna and do things to the best of our ability to please him can really help us to advance. So I like that, how you talked on that point a little bit. And then I also appreciate this point you said about just there comes a point where some yogis, they can practice austerities of their body, they're just so they factually believe that I'm this body, and so they act in that way. And so I don't remember who said this, but I believe it was here in RVC, and someone was speaking about just actually acting in such a way that we feel intoxicated, because when you're intoxicated, sometimes you just act and you don't really even realize what you're doing, whether it's hot or cold. You're just so intoxicated, you're just going to do whatever. But if we can have this same feeling for Krishna and just actually be intoxicated with love for him, or trying to please him, then we can do anything. So those are some things I heard.
Yeah, I think Parmeshwar mentioned that the first night he came here during that lecture. It's pretty nectar point, yeah. Yeah. There's also the point of austerities, some people undergo some kind of austerities and their heart becomes hardened. So this is something that we have to be very careful of, because it's very common for devotees to just jump into things, and then we see that they're just totally fried all the time, and they get a hard heart thinking that they should be doing this, so these things that Prabhupada recommended for us, this is enough. It's not that we should go way out of our nature day after day thinking, yeah, this is how I'm going to make advancement. These are external things. I mean, realistically, it has nothing to do with love for Krishna, you know? Because you can be thinking about Krishna way more, honoring, a reasonable amount of prasadam and, dancing and chanting and kirtan, than, thinking, oh, I need to really limit this, and therefore I can't dance, and therefore I don't have strength to do anything, and therefore I have to sleep all the time, because I have an image of my bodily concept or whatever like that. So this is a common thing to fall into as well. So we have to be careful of it. And also this hard-heartedness, there's a mentality that may develop where one may be performing some kind of austerities. He may be saying or thinking that it's for Krishna, but then he's thinking all of these people around me are needing to do A, B, and C, and I'm not needing to do that. Therefore, I'm more advanced than them, or therefore I'm advancing much quicker, or I'm better than them, or something. And this is a mess. This is a really bad mentality to get into, and we see that amongst the movement. I was hearing Bhakti Swami speaking, and Dhanavir Maharaj has spoke on this as well, where a lot of times when devotees may first take sannyas, right, they think they have to be exceptionally austere with certain things, or even if a devotee gets initiated, first or second initiation, or whatever it is, he might take on a mentality that, oh, I have to be artificially austere, and he goes way out of his nature just to perform some austerities, but it drastically can affect his devotional service if he's not ready for that and develop a hard heart. So the whole thing is, everything that we should be doing should be cultivating a loving attitude towards God and his devotees. It shouldn't be the other way around. We shouldn't be sacrificing one thing for another like that. All right, thank you everyone for tolerating this evening, and Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpachurvascha kripasindhubheva cha patitanam